Shocking energy shift, Cancer new moon signals epic ascension now. When the ancient moon hung high on that fateful night, it was more than a celestial event, it was a cosmic warning. The town of Maplewood held its breath, a tightness in the air as the energy surged, pulling everyone into its mysterious orbit. You could almost hear the palpable whispers of fate in the wind, weaving through the branches of the gnarled old oaks. The ground seemed to thrum beneath their feet, and nervous glances darted around as if the universe itself was watching, waiting for something to ignite. Then, the peculiar happenings began. Mariah, an ordinary librarian with a penchant for astrology, felt a jolt run through her fingertips the moment the first rays of the Cancer moon touched her skin. In her visions, she saw shadowy figures dancing just beyond the veil of existence, beckoning her to cross the divide. Those strange silhouettes danced with urgency, their forms flickering in and out like distant memories. The air grew thick with anticipation, as if the universe was ready to spill its secrets, but only to the chosen FEW.IN neighborhoods across town, windows closed with a soft click, doors locked tight. The elders whispered about the last new moon, how it brought forth madness and change, linking heartbeats to the rhythms of the stars. A chill ran down everyone's spine. The townsfolk, once peaceful, now avoided eye contact, circling like vultures, waiting for anything to unfold. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Mariah stood on the edge of Maplewood Park, her heart raced, almost singing with delusions of meaning. Towering clouds rolled in, shadowing the moon, shrouding the night in an ominous blanket. With every breath, unease crept into the hearts of the townsfolk. A flicker of something. Was it fear? Excitement? Was rising like steam in the silence. Deep down, they knew change was coming, fast and unforgiving. But what did the moon have planned for them? One light flickered in the distance, illuminating three figures. It was the old fortune teller from the edge of town, Nina. She had prophesied countless events, but on this night, they all wondered if her wisdom would hold. A bolt of lightning cracked, momentarily illuminating the field, revealing the townsfolk in wide-eyed awe. Would they dare approach? Would they risk uncovering the cosmic truths that lay just beyond their understanding? A single question thundered in their minds: what will happen next under the darkened moon? The wind howled through Maplewood Park, carrying with it an unsettling energy that seemed to seep into the souls of those who gathered. The distant flicker of light around Nina pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing people closer despite their hesitations. Mariah felt the pull, a magnetic force that compelled her feet forward, her pulse racing with each cautious step. "What do you see, Nina?" Someone finally broke the silence, voice trembling. It was Jacob, a local mechanic, his brow furrowed in desperation. The eyes of the crowd shifted to their fortune teller, anticipation hanging heavier than the looming clouds. Nina lifted her head, her gaze piercing into the night as though seeing through the dark. "The moon," she croaked, words laced with a knowing tremor, "holds the secrets of your souls and the chaos that whispers from them. Tonight, the veil will thin, and shadows will bring forth what is buried." A collective shiver ran through the onlookers. Mariah felt cold sweat bead on her forehead as fear and curiosity bubbled within her. What buried secrets? What chaos? The questions spiraled through her mind, taunting her. Thunder rumbled above, and suddenly the skies erupted. Rain began to pour, drenching the earth and electrifying the air. It was as if the heavens themselves were weeping for the uncertainty that loomed over the town. The crowd stood still, transfixed by the spectacle of nature swirling around them. Then came a scream, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the chaos. Mariah's heart skipped as she turned toward the source. Just beyond a cluster of trees, she spotted a figure writhing on the ground, drenched and disoriented. It was Sarah, the schoolteacher, eyes wide, mouth moving without sound, as if wrestling with some unseen horror. "Help her!" someone yelled, sending ripples through the crowd. Mariah didn't hesitate. She dashed through the rain toward Sarah, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. With every step, fear clawed at her throat, but she pushed it down. Sarah needed her. As Mariah knelt beside Sarah, she noticed the wild look in her eyes. "Mariah, they're coming. They're here." She gasped between ragged breaths. "Who's coming?" Mariah asked, urgency burning in her voice, but Sarah's gaze drifted past her, fixated on something behind. Something frightening lay hidden just beyond what they could see. The crowd slowly approached, each face scrutinizing, caught between curiosity and trepidation. Mariah noticed their unease, their shared confusion, but deep down, she realized they were all united by an instinctual intuition. Something monumental was unfolding, something beyond their understanding. As lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the landscape, shadows began to shift between the trees. Figures emerged, human yet otherworldly, their edges blurred by the night. They moved closer, drawn by the chaotic energy swarming the park. "Stay back!" shouted Jacob, his voice rising in panic, yet still, they pressed forward, entranced. "What are they?" Mariah gasped, feeling the air thicken around her. She locked eyes with the swirling figures, an inexplicable connection crackling between them. "What do they want?" someone shouted, fear cascading over the crowd as uncertainty turned to collective dread. As the figures approached, a voice echoed, deep and resonant, not coming from any single mouth but reverberating through the air itself. "The time has come. The veil is lifted. Choose wisely." In that moment, every heart raced, the weight of 1,000 decisions bearing down on them. Mariah felt herself being encompassed by questions she couldn't answer, fragments of her past and future colliding dangerously close. What path would they take under the darkened moon? Everything hung in balance, and as the figures beckoned, the light flickered once more, plunging them all into uncertainty. The cosmic truth lay before them, but would they find salvation or doom? Mariah's breath hitched as the figures closed in, their forms weaving through the downpour like smoke mingling with shadows. Each step they took sent vibrations through her bones, a reminder that something immense was unfurling right before her eyes. The electric energy crackled in the air, making the hair on her arms stand tall. "Sarah!" Mariah called, snapping her attention back to her friend. But the schoolteacher had gone silent, and dread sank into Mariah's chest. What danger had Sarah sensed? Was it already too late? "Look!" shouted Jacob, pointing at the figures. They glowed faintly, a surreal light illuminating the rain-soaked park, revealing twisted, ethereal features that bore a haunting resemblance to the townsfolk. Faces they recognized, faces twisted in anguish. "Those are us." A voice broke through the crowd, trembling yet curious. Mariah turned. It was Sam, her neighbor, whose confusion mirrored her own. "What does this mean? Is it a curse?" someone whispered, eyes wide with terror. "No." Nina shouted, her voice overpowering the murmurs. "They're reflections. A glimpse of the choices we've made or failed to make. They're not here to harm us, they're here to show us." Mariah felt her heart pound louder. Could this be true? A chance to see the echoes of their past decisions manifesting before them? But in this storm, what hope lay in those shadows? As if sensing her turmoil, the closest figure reached out, a pale hand stretching toward her. Mariah's breath quickened, a flutter of fear mixing with something deeper, a yearning. She took a cautious step forward. "Don't!" Jacob shouted, instinctively placing himself between her and the specter. "What if they're trying to lure you in?" But Mariah felt drawn, as if the figure was summoning her. "If they hold the truth, I have to know." Before she could stop herself, she moved closer, arms trembling, heart racing. The figure tilted its head. Was it curious, sympathetic? In the flickering light, the corners of its mouth widened. "Choose wisely," it repeated in that resonant tone, sending chills down her spine. And within that moment, everything changed. The roar of the storm faded until all that remained was the pounding of her heart, the breathless anticipation filled with unimaginable possibilities. All around her, the crowd began to shift, each person grappling with their own decisions. The figures swirled faster now, their movements blending shadows with light, beckoning them one by one. "Mariah, think." Jacob's voice broke through her trance. "Don't you feel it? There's danger in that allure." But Mariah closed her eyes, envisioning the life she wanted, the connections with loved ones, the dreams she was too afraid to chase. Would these shadows reveal what she needed to change? Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream erupted from the fringe of the gathering. Everyone turned, tension gripping their hearts. What was that? Someone gasped, eyes darting in panic. "It's from the old well," shouted Sam, pointing into the dark trees. "Someone's gone too far." The figures halted, their gazes locking onto the commotion. It was as if they were deciding, would they help? Would they lead the way? Mariah's mind raced. What if the choices they needed to confront lay not just within each of them but also in protecting their community? "Go!" she yelled, mustering strength from within, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. "We can confront whatever's in there together." Just then, the air shifted violently, a gust of wind swirling the rain around them like a frenzied dance. Mariah grasped the weight of the moment, her fears juxtaposed against the urgency rising in her chest. They couldn't fall prey to the allure of the figures any longer. But as she turned to rally the crowd, she realized some were still entranced, staring at the shadows as if expecting resolution. "Help me!" Sarah's shrill cry broke through the haze, a clear warning. "We're running out of time." With a quick glance toward the figures, Mariah took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the storm vibrating with the desperate flicker of hope. The shadows may have appeared alluring, but it was their truth that mattered, the truth that would pierce the heart of Maplewood. They had a choice to make, and she knew then that whatever awaited in the darkness would redefine them. But how? Clenching her fists, Mariah stepped closer, determination igniting inside her. The well loomed larger in the distance, calling to them. As the figures began to dissolve into the rain, a sense of urgency erupted among the crowd. Could they brave what lay ahead? Would confronting the shadows bring healing, or would it spell their doom? Without a moment to lose, they had to decide. Would they face the truth, the path toward light, or surrender to the dark? The answer hung in the air as they moved. What awaited them at the edge of the well? The thunder clapped overhead as Mariah led the charge toward the well, each step driven by fear and resolve. The air weighed heavily with rain and uncertainty, her thoughts an eruption of worry. Sarah's voice echoed in her mind, each plea twisting her gut tighter. "Stay together," she shouted, glancing back at the group. The faces in the crowd were ghostly, illuminated by the flickering light from the fading figures. Some still stared, entranced by visions of what could be or what had happened. Others shuffled into motion, fear spurring them onward with hesitant steps. "What if it's not just our choices we confront?" Jacob's voice quivered behind her. "What if it's them too, a sacrifice?" She didn't have time to answer, or to ponder the implications of his unspoken fears. The chill from the well seemed to draw breath as they neared, a black maw rising from the earth, deeper than the night encasing it. The sound of water splashing echoed within, like whispers from the past. "Who fell?" Sam clutched his sister's arm, eyes wide, the curiosity now replaced with dread. Mariah felt windows creaking open in her mind, visions of Sarah standing there, calling out for help, then plunging down, disappearing into the shadows like a forgotten memory. Panic surged. It couldn't have been mere coincidence that they saw the reflections just as the screen pierced through the storm. Moving swiftly, Mariah reached for Jacob's arm, steadying herself as she peered into the well. "We have to find her. She might know what we need to do." But the darkness yawned back at her, an echo of doubt reverberating loud enough for everyone to hear. "There's something holding us back." Nina gasped, stepping back, her face pale as she surveyed the crowd's shifting anxiety. What if we just don't? It was Jacob, his eyes fierce. We can't just give in to fear. Please don't argue now, Mariah implored, her voice soaring above the noise. We need to stay focused. But the rain intensified, hammering down like an ominous drumbeat, drowning out her words. In the midst of it, a slick shadow crept closer to the group, its form a swirling distortion, flickering in and out like a faulty light. The eerie glow seemed to pulse with dread, a grotesque mimicry of life drawing breath. It seemed aware alive. Mariah, a whisper rode the wind, a voice like brittle leaves. Help me, she turned, heart racing as the air hummed, the tension rising. There was no mistaking it, Sarah was near. The yearning to save her surged through Mariah, igniting a spark of hope amidst the chaos. Go! She yelled, pushing past the rows of uncertain faces. We have to jump in. It's the only way to reach her. We can't let fear steal her from us. Socks and shoes were tossed aside as they prepared to leap into the uncertain depths. No. Wait. What if there is something down there? A voice cut through the intensity. What if it's worse? Then we'll face it, Mariah breathed, feeling a mix of exhilaration and terror, the ground seeming to tremble beneath her feet as if the world itself was shifting. She glanced back at Jacob, who stood rooted, uncertainty brewing in his gaze. Don't you see? This is our chance to confront the shadows we've been running from. If we want to move forward, we have to step into the darkness. Together. As she leaped, a scream ripped from her throat, not of fear, but of defiance. Each heartbeat fueled her ambition, pushing her further into the void. Behind her, the others followed, some hesitant, but others resolute, their determination coalescing as they descended into the abyss that in a blink, they were swallowed by the gloom, the storm above muffled and distant. Cold water enveloped Mariah, shock slicing through her consciousness. As she gasped for air, something shifted within the well. Beneath the surface, shadows writhed, glimmers of light sparking up like fractured mirrors, memories slicing through the murk. Mariah. Sarah's voice echoed, now mingled with the rising tide. You need to find me. The truth lies within. Then, silence. And darkness closed around them, claiming the space in a deep, suffocating embrace. Would the truth be their salvation or their doom? This was only the beginning. What secret would the well unveil? The water churned violently around Mariah, a furious thrumming against her skin as she fought for air. The shadows beneath the surface twisted and writhed, shattering her focus. Panic clawed at her throat, she could barely see through the dark water. Stay calm. She shouted, her voice barely breaking the surface chaos, but her heart raced with terror. We have to find Sarah. She flailed, kicking, desperate to push deeper into the blackness. Each movement seemed to draw her deeper, as if the shadows were reaching for her, pulling her back from her objective. Breathing was a struggle. The weight of the water pressed down, wrapping around her limbs, not unlike the fear swirling in her mind. Mariah. Jacob's voice broke through her mounting dread, faint but clear. She turned, reaching blindly until her hand collided with something flesh. It was Jacob. Relief flooded her, but it tasted bitter. Where's everyone else? Mariah gasped, wringing water from her hair. The dim glimmers echoed her unease, swirling shadows growing more chaotic. I don't know. I lost sight of everyone as we jumped. He yelled, straining against the dark surrounding them. We need to keep moving. Suddenly, another scream echoed around them, sharp and piercing like glass. Mariah's heart sank. It's Sarah. She could feel it in every fiber of her being. Her instincts ignited with urgency. She had to get to her. With Jacob's hand grasped firmly, they moved deeper into the abyss. She felt the water shift around them, currents pulling and pushing, as if the well itself was alive, deciding their trajectory. Over there. Jacob shouted, pointing to a faint glow in the distance, a pulse of light that contrasted with the oppressive darkness. The glow flickered like a beacon against the night. Guided by instinct and desperate hope, they swam toward the light, pushing past the shadows that swirled menacingly. Behind them, other voices joined the fray, muffled calls piecing together as they came closer, Sam and Nina. Relief surged once more, but the darkness throbbed with threats yet unseen. What if we can't reach her? Nina's fear-infused voice floated above the water. What if we're trapped? Don't lose hope. Mariah shouted back. Sarah is close. We can't stop now. The glow flickered wildly, drawing them in with an urgency that felt overwhelming. Each stroke felt heavier, each breath made more precious by the consuming darkness. The cold water wound around her like icy fingers, but Mariah refused to give in. Suddenly, the light expanded, revealing walls covered in eerie symbols, glowing faintly with an energy that felt familiar yet foreign. As they penetrated its sharp edge, a flood of memories and emotions washed over her, visions cascading through her mind, moments with Sarah, laughter shared, tears shed. Mariah. Help me. Sarah's voice surged through the shimmer, frantic yet hopeful. There she was, suspended in the water ahead, eyes wide with the same mix of terror that gripped Mariah's heart. But as they closed in, shadows surged, swirling around Sarah like a vortex of despair, pulling her away from their grasp. No! Mariah screamed, lunging forward, her chest tight. We're coming. Hold on. In the last desperate push, the light surged, and the shadows screamed, a vicious wail that reverberated through the water. As Mariah reached for Sarah, the world erupted around them, a blinding burst of energy swept over them like a tidal wave. Then darkness, the shocking silence enveloped them once more. The echoes of their screams mixed with the pulses of light, leaving only the silence of the well, leaving them hanging on the precipice of what would happen next. Would they emerge intact, or was this the sacrifice they feared? And just like that, everything went dark. Mariah's heart pounded violently in her chest, a relentless drum echoing through the suffocating silence. For a moment, she floated in nothingness, the dark water thick around her like a heavy blanket. There was no sound, no sight, just an overwhelming sense of dread washed over her. Then, like a shattering glass, a sharp gasp broke through the gloom. Mariah surged forward, instinctively reaching outward. Her fingers brushed against something, a hand. But instead of the warmth she craved, it felt cold, lifeless. Jacob? She whispered, panic surfacing in her voice. Right here. I'm right here. He replied, his grip firm and reassuring. Did you see her? Did you see Sarah? We were so close. The darkness pressed in closer, a consuming entity that seemed to mock them. Each second dragged like hours, every beat of Mariah's heart amplified with anxiety. We can't be trapped here, she said, desperation creeping into her tone. We have to find a way out. A low rumble shook the water around them, a gurgling reply that sent shivers trailing down her spine. Shadows writhed, and the lights in the distance flickered ominously. Suddenly, a flicker of warmth enveloped her, bringing with it a sense of clarity. Mariah squeezed Jacob's hand tightly, praying it wasn't a figment of her imagination. Jacob, what if we? Before she could finish, a blinding flash broke through the darkness, illuminating the cavern momentarily. Sarah's figure appeared, suspended amidst glowing tendrils of light, her terrified eyes searching desperately through the chaos. Mariah felt an electric jolt within her chest, strength surging like a tidal wave. Sarah! She shouted, her voice carving through the darkness. But the shadows lashed out, coiling like serpents around Sarah, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Mariah's heart twisted painfully. No! Hold on, Sarah. We are coming. All her instincts screamed at her to swim harder, to push against the dark ocean that tried to engulf them. She felt it then, a sense of unity, of determination, as if everyone's fears and hopes combined into an undeniable force. Together. Jacob shouted, his voice slicing through the water like a spear. They swam with an urgent purpose, each stroke pulling them closer to Sarah, closer to hope. The water roared around them, chaos battling against the spark of unity they created. But the shadows fought back. A surge of cold constricted around their limbs, slowing their progress, dragging them into the depths. "We can't give in," Mariah shouted, the panic igniting her resolve. "We have to break through." With a Herculean effort, she envisioned the warmth of their friendship, the laughter they shared, all intertwined with the memories of Sarah. That intangible light seeped into her being, igniting a fire within her very soul. She pushed harder, feeling Jacob, Nina, and Sam rally behind her, then, in one fierce moment, everything exploded into color. A wave of light washed over them, forcing the shadows to recoil, howling in fury. Visible energy surrounded them, pulsating rhythmically. It filled Mariah with strength. "Sarah!" she gasped, eyes locked on her friend as the currents shifted. "We're almost there." But in that moment of clarity, the walls of the cavern trembled, and the glow around them flickered dangerously. A crack shattered the moment, revealing a greater darkness lurking beyond the light, a monstrous shadow that hungered unmistakably for them. Would they break through together, or would they become another whisper lost to the abyss? Mariah had to know. "Just a little further," she shouted, her voice stronger than ever, yet tinged with the weight of impending doom. The shadows unleashed a final outcry as they surged forward, everything converging on this one moment. The fate of them all hinged on a fragile thread. But in the throes of that uncertain breath, a realization struck her: this darkness was not just a tormenting force. It was responding. What did it want? Mariah's vision pulsed with echoes of light and shadow, her heart racing in sync with the primal chaos surrounding them. The cavern quaked as the shadows grew bolder, but something deeper tugged at her. The darkness was alive, an entity eager to feed on fear and despair. "Keep swimming," Jacob shouted beside her, his voice a lifeline. "We're almost there." She could feel the grip of Sarah's form slipping away, and the urgency clawed at her insides like sharp teeth. In the back of her mind, a voice whispered, "It's too late, Mariah. You can't save her." "No." She barked back at the darkness, the words erupting from her mouth like a fierce flame. "We are not done yet." Every ounce of fear and doubt transformed into a weapon of hope, propelling her forward. But with each stroke, something dreadful happened. The waters churned violently around her as the monstrous shadow began to stretch, clogging every way out. Shadows flickered like a dying light, twisting into grotesque figures, serpents without form reaching out, desperate to snatch them back. "Help us!" Mariah cried, her voice trembling with emotion. "Sarah, hold on. We're coming." With each plea, the shadows recoiled momentarily, creating fleeting pockets of light. It was enough to urge her onward, enough to spark new strength. Then she felt it: a silence, a stillness that screamed in the midst of chaos. Out of the silence, Sarah's scream echoed, a heart-wrenching, despairing sound that ignited a ferocious drive in Mariah. "No. I want to let you take her. Focus." Jacob's voice cut through the looming dread, fierce as steel. "On three, we'll break through together." 1, 2. Mariah could feel the shadows tightening closer, crawling over her like an avalanche. A cold sweat formed on her brow, but she squeezed Jacob's hand tighter, a connection flowing through them both. She thought of every joyous moment with Sarah, every laugh shared amongst friends. 3. With one mighty thrust, the light surged anew, flickering brightly against the encroaching dark. Mariah propelled herself forward with sheer will, her heart igniting with an unyielding force. She felt Jacob and others push with her, their desperation merging into an unstoppable tide. They fought against the current not just for survival, but for unity. The darkness shrieked as if wounded, thrashing violently in a final desperate attempt to hold them back. Light burst forth, bright and blinding, shattering the dark veil and revealing the heartbreaking truth. "Oh no!" Mariah gasped, her breath shallow. Before them loomed a grand chasm, the remnants of old battles visible on its face, bodies of those who had been swallowed whole by the shadows, desperation etched into their eyes. It wasn't just Sarah who was in danger, it was the legacy of everyone lost to this abyss. "Mariah, look out!" Jacob shouted, yanking her back just as a wave of darkness surged forward, threatening to drag her under. The cavern shook again, rattling their very souls, as they struggled against the shadows. Fear gripped her heart, yet she pushed forward again. "Stay together!" she shouted. But then she felt the warmth of another hand gripping hers, not one of her friends, cold and slimy. Panic gripped her throat as she turned. "Who are you?" Her voice quivered, eyes wide as she faced the specter. It was Sarah's face, but twisted and wrong, veins pulsating with dark energy, a reflection of every soul lost in the cavern. "You came too late," it whispered seductively. Suddenly, the lights flickered like dying stars, the reality of their situation crashing into her. What was this creature? More importantly, did it represent their future? In a shattering moment of clarity, Mariah understood the darkness wasn't merely a force. It was a choice. "What do you want?" she gasped, knowing time was slipping away. "Surrender," it replied with a haunting calmness. That question hung in the frigid air, chilling her to the bone. What price would they have to pay for freedom? The shadows surged, determination flickering at the edges of her mind, and with it, the realization of a far greater gamble loomed before her. Was she ready to face it? Mariah knew she had to act, but would her answer lead to salvation or doom? Mariah's heart thudded in her chest, the echo of the spectre's voice reverberating in her mind. Surrender. The word felt like shackles, wrapping tighter with each pulse of fear. The twisted visage of Sarah loomed large, and Mariah's gut churned. The darkness was testing her resolve, begging for her weakness. "No!" she yelled, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I won't give in." As the shadows danced around her, wild and furious, she felt the stirrings of something deep inside, a flicker of rebellion, born of love and loss. Suddenly, the darkness surged forward. Mariah braced herself, drawing Jacob and the others closer. "Don't let go!" she screamed as the tendrils of night lashed out at them, coiling around her friends like live wires. A cacophony of gasps filled the cavern as figures emerged from the shadows, echoes of those lost before, faces twisted in agony. They hovered, drifting in and out of sight, yearning for release. Mariah felt their sorrow, the weight of their despair pressing against her chest like a boulder. What happened to them? Jacob's voice trembled, stark with disbelief. "Can't you see?" Mariah shouted back. "They're just like us. Trapped between choices." The shimmering forms wailed, their echoes penetrating the very marrow of her bones. It was as if the cavern itself mourned for the countless souls captivated by despair. Mariah closed her eyes, clenching her fists. She had to remember. She had to stay strong for Sarah. "We need to push forward," she urged, desperately searching the darkness for glimpses of light. "We're almost there. We just need to find Sarah." "Look out!" Jacob's warning came too late. Thick shadows swarmed, grabbing at them, claws of darkness that seemed both alive and hungry. Mariah stifled a scream as the cold enveloped her. "Stop!" A new voice, sharp and commanding. The darkness recoiled slightly, and for a second, Mariah caught a glimpse of a silhouette emerging from the shadows, the real Sarah. "Mariah!" Sarah cried, her eyes wide with fear and hope, but something else lurked beneath the surface. "Sarah!" She reached out, heart soaring. But the moment shattered as the specter with Sarah's face stepped forward, a grotesque mockery of her true self. "Do you really think you can save her?" it taunted, a sinister grin splitting its face. "No." The word burst from Mariah's lips, a shield against the encroaching despair. Frantic energy surged around her as she concentrated, pooling her pain and strength. She fought through the dark caves of loss. She wouldn't falter now. "What is happening?" Jacob's voice broke through the chaos, wavering with uncertainty. "Look around." Mariah shouted, her voice fierce. "We're not alone. They need us to fight." The friends clung to each other, their united front igniting a pulse of light through the shadows. The cavern around them vibrated, the darkness shrieked in fury and confusion, pulsating with their collective will. For Mariah, the choice was clear, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. "Are you ready to fight?" she asked Jacob, breathing hard. "Always," he replied, determination igniting in his eyes. With newfound resolve, Mariah turned to the way she had seen Sarah, realizing their essence could merge strength against the darkness. "Together!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the dimness, and as they swam toward Sarah's figure, darkness screeched like a wounded beast, the shadows flinging themselves against the light surging from within them. The cavern's walls pulsated, trembling from the combined power of friendship. But as they drew closer, the ghostly Sarah, a flicker of desperation in her eyes, began to fade. "Don't let me go," she pleaded, reaching out, voice fragmented. "Fight," Mariah urged, feeling the bond weakening. This was the moment that would define them. "We fight for each other, always." The shadows swirled in a furious rage, and just as victory felt near, they lashed out one last time, an overwhelming wave of darkness crashing over them. Mariah gasped, knowing a choice loomed before them like a dark cloud: would they surrender to fear or forge their path? Through the dark alley of despair, it was a moment frozen in time, every heartbeat a countdown. The abyss beckoned with promises of safety, but freedom could be their prize if they dared to challenge the darkness. "Mariah! Don't!" Jacob shouted, as the shadows closed in, wrapping around them like frightening snakes. With her heart racing, Mariah's resolve hardened in the face of overwhelming dread. Were they destined to be lost like the others? Or could they rewrite their fate? She couldn't think of losing Sarah again. What would she choose when the moment pulled at her heart? Would it be light or darkness? The shadows surged, a living, breathing thing, slithering over Mariah and her friends, cold and suffocating. Each whisper of darkness clawed at their resolve, seeking to extinguish the flickering light that burned between them. But in that terrifying moment, Mariah's heart held fierce defiance. "Push!" she screamed, a battle cry that climbed over the cacophony of fear. The grip of hesitation tightened around them, but she felt Jacob's hand in her own, warm and steady. Around them, the ghostly souls wailed, sending tremors of dread through the earth. They were so close to Sarah. "Hold on tight. Don't give in," Mariah shouted, forcing her fear to the back of her mind. "Sarah needs us." The other forms, though twisted by pain, began to glow faintly, as if their sorrow and yearning for freedom wove a tapestry of light that intertwined with Mariah's spirit. They were not just remnants of despair, they were allies in a battle against the very shadows that sought to silence them. A surge of power pooled in her chest, spreading warmth that carried the weight of her love for Sarah, for Jacob, for those unable to fight for themselves. The shadows writhed, sensing the shift, and echoed with anguished howls that shook Mariah to her core. "Mariah!" Sarah's real voice pierced through the chaos. Hope flickered anew, and Mariah's spirit lit up with an unexplainable energy. She could feel it, a thread tying her to Sarah, stretching across the void filled with darkness, a tether of a bond unbroken by death. "Don't let them take you," Mariah shouted. "I believe in you." In a heartbeat, the specter mimicking Sarah stumbled, its sinister facade faltering under the weight of Mariah's declaration. "What are you doing?" it hissed, venom dripping from every syllable. "You have no power here." But Mariah could feel it, the surge, electrifying every fiber of her being. She rallied her friends, the light glowing brighter, bundled together with shared resolve. "We're not alone anymore. Remember that. Together we rise. Together." Jacob echoed, his voice rolling like thunder. Without warning, the darkness began to retreat, shrinking back as their collective strength ignited the air. Mariah forged ahead, knuckles white around Sarah's fading silhouette, refusing to let it slip from her grasp. "Don't let go!" Sarah cried, and despite the agony etched on her face, Mariah could see the glimmer of hope beneath the surface. The violent shadows shrieked and twisted, a frenzy of anger and betrayal. They lunged for the friends, striking like bolts of lightning. Mariah watched as a dark tendril reached for Jacob, but he stood his ground, eyes blazing with defiance. "Not today!" he roared, letting the fierce light they had generated explode outward. The impact sent the darkness reeling, scattering. It felt as if they had breached a barrier, shifting through the void toward the shimmering fray where Sarah's true essence flickered like a beacon. Mariah closed her eyes in focus, digging deep within herself to pull every ounce of strength she held: love, anger, every emotion sparking within her. As the tendrils of darkness recoiled, Mariah summoned a surge of brilliance that split the black like a storm breaking the clouds. "Sarah!" she shouted, reaching toward her friend, intent on healing the bond that death had tried to sever, but just as their hands grazed, shadows whipped back with renewed fury, a cyclone of angry wails spiraling around them, demanding their surrender. "You cannot return." The phantom voice ripped through the air, vibrating with an unholy echo that threatened to drown out their collective will. "Together!" Jacob urged again, and their voices intertwined, a fierce bond stronger than fear itself, defying the rippling gloom. In this raging vortex, Mariah felt herself being pulled, a tug of war at the edge of desperation. But she held firm, eyes locked on Sarah. "I want to let you go." The cavern quivered, and in that split second, a fiery light exploded from within them, a shockwave of truth and unyielding spirit. But as the shadows writhed, pulling at their very essence, each moment felt suspended in terror. "What will it cost us?" she wondered, as the light surged, battling for dominance against the encroaching void, and through the chaos, a question loomed larger than the darkness itself: would they hold on long enough to break free, or would they be swallowed by the very despair they fought to escape? As the tempest twisted and roiled around them, Mariah felt the warmth of hope pulsating through her veins, a surge that fought against the chill of the abyss. The cavern trembled, shadows clawing at every inch of comfort they had carved for themselves. But darkness was no match for the collective will of the group. "Stay with me," she called out, her voice a cutting beacon amidst the chaos. One last thrust forward, a frantic rallying cry igniting every soul fighting alongside her. Each brush of Sarah's fingertips was a lifeline, a tether urging her on. The walls of the cavern trembled as if echoing their shared determination. "We want freedom and connection, we're not afraid," Jacob shouted, his voice roaring through the cacophony. "Remember who we are, remember who we love," Mariah added, feeling every heartbeat sink in perfect rhythm with the shouts of her neighbors. The shadows creaked and howled, desperately trying to drown out their courage, tightening their grip as dread threatened to pull them down. But together they pushed against it, buoyed by the bond they shared. With one final resolve, Mariah reached for Sarah, and their fingers intertwined, sparks of electricity jolting between them, connecting their individual hearts into one powerful pulse. "We're here. You're not alone," she breathed, drowning in the aura of their determination. The dark vortex surged forward, twisting angrily, as if trying to swallow them whole, but they steeled themselves against fear. Mariah focused on the memories woven into the fabric of their friendship: laughter shared over coffee, long talks under starry nights, and whispered dreams that once felt unreachable. Suddenly, the shadows shrieked, and the air exploded with blinding light, a purity that radiated from their bonds. Mariah felt herself lifted, surging forward into the growing brightness alongside her friends, the very essence of their resilience breaking chains forged in fear. As they broke through the last layer of darkness, the world around them splintered like breaking glass, and Mariah inhaled sharply. They were no longer suspended in shadow, they emerged into a realm filled with light and clarity. The cavern transformed into a sanctuary, remnants of darkness drifting away like forgotten nightmares. In the shimmering light, the faces of those they had lost twinkled with love and acceptance. Sarah stood before her, whole and radiant, freed from the torment of the shadow that had sought to trap her. "You did it!" Sarah exclaimed, eyes gleaming with the brilliance of understanding. "We're finally free. The others emerged, laughter spilling over the remnants of fear as they embraced one another, warmth enveloping them in a comforting hug. A soft breeze swept through the clearing, carrying away the whispers of the shadows, and Mariah felt a tightness in her chest gradually ease. Each breath filled with clarity, and she looked around at the faces of her friends, some shaken but united. They had faced the abyss together, defying the space that sought to divide them. "Let us not forget what we've learned," Mariah said, looking each of them in the eye, her voice full of earnestness. "It's too easy to be drawn into darkness. Together is the only way we can rise above." Nods of agreement swept through the group, memories of fear turning to a shared promise: they would always stand together against the darkness. The deep pain of loss would not linger but transform into a strength so they could heal and grow, and as their laughter mingled with the breeze, the moon shone brightly above, illuminating the town of Maplewood, reminding them that every shadow held a light, waiting for the chance to break free. Their hearts, once fractured, now beat with hope, courage, and connection. Mariah stepped forward, ready to lead her friends back home. Back to a life touched by the moon's magic, a life filled with dreams, and a resolve that could outlast any dark night. "Let us go," she urged, a smile breaking across her face. The town awaited their return, a new beginning lay ahead. This was their moment, a chance to redefine their paths, to embrace future stars flickering brightly in the night sky. They returned to Maplewood as warriors, vibrant lights against any encroaching shadows, armed with the unfaltering truth of their bond. So, remember this, those of you who still feel the weight of darkness, it's the love we share that'll guide us through. When shadows circle, reach for one another, fight together, and discover that you have the power to illuminate even the darkest nights. Now it's your turn. If you don't want to miss out on more epic stories just like this one, you need to subscribe immediately. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. Smash that like button now. Every click feeds the algorithm, and we want everyone to hear this message. Don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what you thought of the ending. I want to hear all about it. Finally, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to be part of this adventure. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let us build this community of light together.